The plot of the Odyssey is not linear. That is, instead of beginning with A in order to get to Z, the poet catches up with the hero midway through the action. The literary term for this is in medias res, and it helps create an impressive storyline. However, it is very easy to understand how this type of plot works. From antiquity through to our days, Homer has been considered a great master of words, a top poet, even perhaps the best of all ages, not only because teachers and academics say so, but also because his masterful storytelling is evident, even today, to all those who study his epics in earnest. Now, speaking of the Odyssey, if Homer had chosen to narrate Odysseus' story in a strict chronological order, event after event after event, from the moment he left Troy up to his arrival at Ithaca and the reunion with his family, well, the poem would not have been half as good. Why? Let's see. Once the Greeks conquered Troy, Odysseus and his companions board their small fleet and sail for home. The first part of their journey is full of adventures. They meet the Lotus Eaters, the witch Circe, the mighty Cyclops, the deathly Sirens, and many more monsters and unfriendly tribes. The time frames mentioned by Homer add up to a couple of years at most. Then Odysseus loses his ship, his comrades, and he alone ends up shipwrecked on Calypso's remote, isolated island. The mighty sea nymph holds him captive there for 7 long years, while all he wants is to return to Ithaca. When finally Zeus decides that Odysseus is free to get away, Poseidon throws a tempest upon his wrath, and Odysseus is saved by the lovely princess Nausicaa. He spends 3 days and 3 nights at Scheria as an honored guest at the palace of King Alcinous, her father. Then the Phaeacians, as these people are called, transport him home to Ithaca on one of their ships. Once he gets there, he discovers that his palace is swarming with ill-meaning noblemen who want to marry his wife, Penelope. What's more, those suitors are planning to kill his son, who is getting on their way. Disguised as a beggar, Odysseus manages to enter the palace, and when the right moment comes, he kills them all, aided by goddess Athena, his son Telemachus, and a handful of loyal slaves. At first, Penelope has her doubts as to the man's real identity. Could it be that this stranger is indeed her beloved husband? In the end, though, she falls into Odysseus' arms and the family is one again. As for old Laertes, Odysseus' father, he lives to see the day of his son's return. Happy ending, Hollywood style. Were Homer to narrate the events in this order, the literary effect would not be that great. The poem would lack tension, it would lack surprises, it would lack interesting associations. In other words, we'd have many adventures in the beginning, then a long gap of inactivity with Odysseus trapped on Calypso's island, and finally too much action jam-packed towards the end, within a few days' time. The storyline would be somehow flawed, and let's face it, the audience would rather head off to the taverna than sit and listen to a long and boring song. What poet would want that? So, Homer would need to find a way to satisfy his audience, keep them awake, enthralled by Odysseus' story. In order to keep his audience hooked and begging for more, Homer had to come up with a poetic device that would create maximum suspense. Fortunately enough, he was a master story craftsman, and this is where the magic happens. Right from the very beginning, in verse number 10, Homer warns us that the story will start from some random point, only not so random really, for it is the muse, goddess of inspiration, that will guide him to pick the best point from which to launch Odysseus' story. Surprisingly enough, it is near the end of the journey that the Odyssey begins. We meet Odysseus captive on the island of the nymph Calypso, who wants to keep him there forever. Despite his burning desire to get back home, the hero is faced with a huge obstacle. How will Odysseus be able to resume his journey? Up on Mount Olympus, the gods are holding a council. Goddess Athena, Odysseus' patroness, persuades her father Zeus that he has to take a stand and order Calypso to let go of her prisoner. Odysseus is allowed to sail for Ithaca, and this is where things are starting to gain momentum again. The audience hold their breath as the poet raises suspense over Odysseus' fate. For even though the gods have reached a decision, we really don't know how things will unfold. Zeus's decision generates new questions. Will Calypso let Odysseus go? Will Odysseus finally make it to Ithaca? What will happen once he gets back home? The possibilities are open, but at this point they are only possibilities and nothing more. The stakes are high and the dangers very real for the hero. So, this is what In Medias Res is all about, starting from a midpoint that is carefully chosen in order to hold maximum tension and maximum impact for the story that is about to unfold. It may sound a bit weird at first, but it really is the best way to narrate the myth.